On this Labor Day Monday, political parties trying to win over workers.
Their platform seems to be the most aggressive.
The surprising parallels between pledges. The Conservatives accused of connections to a Canadian gun lobby.
We're going to be building something here.
As Erin O'Toole faces questions about trust. Prison break. The criminals who dug themselves into deeper trouble.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Robin Gill.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. We begin tonight with a raucous and violent attempt to derail the Liberal leader. Justin Trudeau was in London, Ontario when rocks were thrown at him. It's not clear if Trudeau was hurt. The so-called protesters were demanding that there be no more lockdowns and no vaccine passports. They were also shouting support for the PPC, a reference to the People's Party of Canada. This is a critical week in the federal campaign. There are now just 14 days until the vote, and the parties are scrambling to gain an edge in what's become a very tight race. Today, all three main party leaders were in Ontario. Earlier, Justin Trudeau campaigned in the city of Welland as well as London. Erin O'Toole was in Ottawa and Jagmeet Singh in Hamilton. The focus was Labor Day and what they do to help working Canadians. Here's Abigail Bimman with a look at what the parties are promising for workers.
Commit today to improve access to the paid sick leave program.
Slamming Justin Trudeau for not committing to 10 days of paid sick leave before he hit the campaign trail. No surprise from the pro-worker, pro-union New Democrats.
The Liberal strategy has always been, why deliver it when you can just campaign on it?
And the Orange platform has other big promises for laborers, like a $20 federal minimum wage.
Their platform, insofar as it relates to employees, seems to be the most aggressive.
On this Labor Day, I'm happy to be here to talk about standing up for workers.
But Erin O'Toole's blue team is now targeting the blue-collar vote. We looked at all three platforms, and the emphasis may surprise you. Conservatives mentioned workers the most, Liberals just behind. That means the NDP come in last. You may also be surprised by overlap between all three party promises. Liberals and NDP both committing to 10 paid sick days. All three propose tax credits for construction workers or skilled trades if they have to move. Identical down to the dollar for Liberals and Conservatives, a $4,000 deduction. Those parties both promising to expand the Canada Workers Benefit too for the most vulnerable. Both would make the payments quarterly. The Liberals say they'll help 1 million more people. The Conservatives say they'll double the amount to $2,800.
How do you win those worker votes that Conservatives are now trying to target?
Workers aren't fools. Until he comes forward with a costed platform, I'm not going to give his platform any credence.
Justin Trudeau is also not giving any credence to the dozens of angry, profane shouters who continue to dog his campaign. Monday, he said protesters isn't the right term, calling them anti-vaxxer mobs who don't get to dictate how the country gets through the pandemic. Robin?
Abigail Bimman in Brantford, Ontario. Conservative leader Erin O'Toole spent another day under fire over his position on gun control. His party's platform originally promised to undo a Liberal ban on certain firearms. But yesterday, O'Toole said he'd keep the ban if he were elected. And tonight, the party finally admits it's changed its platform. Our David Akin is following the Conservative campaign for us. David?
Robin, the Liberal War Room has dug up a 2018 recording featuring Fred Delory. Now, Delory is currently the Conservative National Campaign Manager. He's running the election campaign for the Tories. But in 2018, he was a registered lobbyist for the National Firearms Association, the NFA.
Now, the NFA has fiercely opposed Liberal attempts to tighten gun laws. And in this recording, which the Liberals provided to Global News, Delory is making the case that the NFA needs to politically mobilize itself to defeat Liberal MPs.
We're going to be building something here, a permanent structure within the NFA to really to give ourselves a much louder voice in the ridings as well, to make sure that politicians are hearing us loud and clear.
Fast forward 2 years, and Delory is first managing Erin O'Toole's run for Conservative leader and is now running the National Conservative election campaign. But O'Toole says Delory did not formalize any relationship between the National Firearms Association and the Conservatives.
There is zero quid pro quo.
Delory, through a party spokesman, confirmed what his leader said and noted that he had severed his business relationship with the NFA more than 2 years ago, before the last election. On top of that, when it came time to endorse a candidate in the Conservative leadership race of 2020, the NFA did not endorse O'Toole, it endorsed Derek Sloan. But O'Toole may have trouble with some in his own caucus on this issue. Hours after O'Toole said Sunday that he would keep the Liberal restrictions in place, an incumbent Conservative running in a southeastern BC riding, Rob Morrison, said on Facebook, quote, "The Conservative position has not changed and is as it always has been. We will repeal the Liberal gun ban." O'Toole on Saturday said Morrison is incorrect.
I'm the leader, and we will have an approach focused on public safety, focus on maintaining restrictions in place and having a review of our classification system that removes the politics from this.
But O'Toole's flip-flop on guns is now ammunition for his opponents, who say he cannot be trusted.
Canadians are beginning to know what those of us who watch him in the House have known for a long time about Erin O'Toole, is that he'll say anything to try and get elected.
David, the first English language debate is set for Thursday. What will you be watching for?
And it's the only English language debate, Robin. That's why it will be even more important than normal. Now, for this debate, O'Toole goes into it arguably as the front runner. And that's because he has run a pretty safe campaign. He's managed to move his party to the center. And it's going to be Justin Trudeau on the attack, trying to move O'Toole back out there to the right wing. And the Liberals will do that using some familiar wedge issues. Gun control be one, abortion, two-tier health care. I expect that O'Toole is ready with some responses to brush aside those attacks. But Trudeau is also going to have some incoming fire. One of the most effective moments from the French language debate last week was when NDP leader Jagmeet Singh pressed Trudeau on the question that seems to have made a lot of voters angry, which is, why are we even having this election as the pandemic's fourth wave ramps up? Robin?
David Akin in Ottawa. Thanks, David. Travel restrictions are easing for fully vaccinated international travelers coming to Canada. Starting tomorrow morning, 4 nationals will be able to enter Canada for non-essential reasons like tourism without having to quarantine for 14 days. But they must have a negative COVID-19 test result taken no more than 72 hours before their flight. Travelers must have no symptoms or signs of COVID-19. And they need to submit their information through the Arrive Can app or website. This Labor Day marks the start of a very uncertain autumn in the U.S. The Delta variant is surging and hospitals are being pushed to the brink. That country is now averaging more than 1,500 deaths per day for the first time since March. And there are more than 161,000 new cases per day. Many of them involve children under 12 who are not eligible for vaccines. As Jackson Prosco reports, as they head back to school, many companies are scrapping back-to-work plans to help curb the spread of COVID-19.
For Americans, the long weekend brought packed beaches, crowded stadiums, and overflowing hospitals.
And people are like, yeah, it's all open, it's all free, and it's devastating to me.
Despite the widespread availability of vaccines, daily COVID cases and deaths in the U.S. have surged to levels not seen since January. Some states are seeing their worst days of the pandemic. In 5 states, less than 10% of ICU beds are available.
There are no vaccinated COVID critically ill patients in these units.
Among the hospitalized are a growing number of children, most still too young to be vaccinated. In places where school resumed in August, tens of thousands of students have contracted the virus, and hundreds of schools have already been forced to shut their doors. It all suggests a tough fall ahead as more students go back.
What we're learning now is that the little kids who are under the age of 12, not old enough to be vaccinated, are often getting infected from unvaccinated adults. And really, in a school setting, right, in my opinion, anyone over the age of 12 who goes into that school has to be vaccinated.
At the same time, a resurging pandemic risks reinfecting the American economy. Job creation has slowed. Travel and tourism are once again dropping off, while major companies like Google and Apple have scrapped return-to-work plans, pushing them to the spring of 2022. All of it adds urgency to the push for booster shots, which could begin to roll out to Americans later this month with FDA approval.
We were hoping that we would get both the candidates, both products, Moderna and Pfizer, rolled out by the week of the 20th.
Too late to save thousands of lives or quell the current surge. In just a few short weeks, the Delta variant has undone a summer's worth of optimism, delivering a hard dose of reality for fall. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
The Taliban is claiming victory in the Panjshir Valley, the final holdout in Afghanistan. The region has a long history of resistance, first in the 1980s against the Soviet occupation, and later against the Taliban when it controlled parts of the country up until 2001. Resistance fighters deny they've been defeated, but after more than 40 years of conflict, Afghans may settle for any stability, even if it comes with Taliban rules. Here's Crystal Gumansing.
Few things are simple or straightforward in Afghanistan. Take the black and white Taliban flag being raised in the capital of Panjshir province. The Taliban released the video, a signal it's over for resistance fighters. But even that is disputed. The head of the National Resistance Front of Afghanistan has called for an uprising, saying fighters are still present in all strategic positions.
Here we might have a situation where both narratives are correct.
Saeed Khan, a senior lecturer and director of global studies at Wayne State University, says controlling even part of Panjshir shows the Taliban's ability to take elusive battle zones.
The fact that they now have control over the entire country provides the Taliban with a claim of legitimacy and certainly a claim of a mandate that they're going to follow, where it's not just a matter of ruling from Kabul.
Zabiullah Mujahid, a Taliban spokesperson, says the electricity will be restored and food sent to the holdout region. More than 60% of the Afghan population is under the age of 25. The country, which has been at war or in conflict for more than 40 years, is one of the world's poorest. This man in search of work in Kabul says we poor people only want to work. The governments are all the same to us. Makes no difference to us. But there is a difference for many women. Taliban members reportedly used tear gas and tasered female demonstrators this past weekend. And female students have already been segregated from males at Kabul University. The Taliban says with the formation of the new government, a procedure will be created so that in areas where Islamic law allows, women can work and take part in activities. The U.S. Secretary of State landed in Qatar Monday partly to facilitate the departure of more at-risk individuals. Reporters traveling with him were told 4 Americans were allowed to leave by land. It's hoped the Taliban will allow more Western allies to leave as international flights from Kabul airport could resume this week. Crystal Gumansing, Global News, London.
Coming up, one toddler, one set of twin babies, and all their parents breathing sighs of relief. In Saskatchewan, the manhunt has ended for a man wanted in a deadly altercation on a First Nation. 2 people are dead and another is in hospital after a shooting on the James Smith First Nation. That's about 180 kilometers northeast of Saskatoon. 30-year-old Sean Mustus was taken into custody without incident this afternoon. There's some tough news tonight for fans of the hit HBO series The Wire. Michael K. Williams, who played Omar Little, has died at the age of 54. The 5-time Emmy nominee was also known for his role as Chalky White in Boardwalk Empire. According to U.S. media, Williams was found this afternoon at his home in Brooklyn. The cause of death has not been confirmed. A mother in Australia was overwhelmed by emotion after her missing toddler, who has autism, was found alive. AJ Elfalik, who is nonverbal, had vanished for 3 days. Police located the 3-year-old drinking from a creek near his family home in a rural area. They say the fact the boy stayed close to the water likely kept him alive. He suffered only bug bites and a few scrapes. From Shawshank to West Bank, still ahead, life imitates art in an audacious prison break. In Israel, security forces are scrambling to find 6 Palestinian prisoners who made an audacious escape from a high-security prison, a move reminiscent of a famous Hollywood movie. Some of the fugitives were serving sentences for being involved in deadly attacks against Israelis. As Redmond Shannon reports, the escape is a huge embarrassment to Israeli security.
Looking for answers in a hole in the ground. Workers in the high-security Gilboa prison discover the toilet-floored escape hatch used by 6 prisoners who crawled to freedom in the early hours of Monday. Just outside the prison walls, directly beneath a watchtower, the other end of the tunnel. This prison service commander says most of the escape route was actually in an underground cavity already part of the prison structure. The circumstances are remarkably similar to those depicted in the classic movie The Shawshank Redemption. The cramped tunnel, painstakingly dug with a small tool, in this case reportedly a rusty spoon rather than a rock hammer. Social media users drew the Hollywood parallels, some mocking Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. Israeli security forces have launched a massive search for the 6 fugitives, 4 of whom were serving life sentences for their involvement in attacks that killed Israelis. The prison is just 5 kilometres from the West Bank. It's suspected the men may have crossed the frontier or even the border with Jordan before the alarm was raised. The brother of one of the men, Zakaria Zubeidi, was released from the same prison 2 months ago. I never had a feeling that my brother was planning an escape, he said. Zubeidi is a former militant leader with the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigades. He was awaiting trial. In Gaza, some celebrated the escape, perhaps as much for the embarrassment to Israel as for the actions of the prisoners. This Islamic Jihad leader pleaded with the West Bank-based Palestinian Authority not to help in the search. Earlier this year, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas resumed security cooperation with Israel, and he recently restarted high-level talks with the Israeli government for the first time in a decade. This prison escape presents the unpopular Abbas with a dilemma as he tries to balance Israeli relations with the approval of voters. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
There's a remarkable medical feat to tell you about in Israel. A pair of conjoined twins were able to see each other for the first time after being surgically separated, a first for Israel. The 1-year-old girls underwent more than 12 hours of complex surgery. The pair was originally joined at the back of their heads. Their operation took months of preparation and the help of dozens of international experts. The girls are expected to make a full recovery. And that is Global National for this Monday night. I'm Robin Gill. Tonight, your Canada is Vernon, BC. We'd love to see your corner of the country, so please keep sending your photos to viewers@globalnational.com. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you back here tomorrow. Have a great night.